that said, I'm really glad to be back after about 7 years away from the game. One thing that's super important is I'm taking the mantle back. This is my Monster Play Island t-shirt, or I should say my bowling shirt that was part of our release for gifts for Lord of the Rings Online ages and ages ago. It's a little big on me now. I was a lot bigger back then, but you know, you get older, you have to do some things in order to remain healthy. So I want to just say flat out, thanks for being here. Looking forward to giving everybody some insight into what we're doing and where we're moving, specifically with Monster Play, but also there's a lot of other questions that have come up over the past couple of days that people are looking for some answers to, and I'm perfectly willing to answer some of these. We've only got about 45 minutes before we can actually, the server's going to go down on Borora, and I'm actually going to be playing on Borora today to show you the changes that are actually going in. So, without further ado, I'm going to actually take this opportunity to hop into the forums and make sure that I get to the questions that were actually asked. I had to have this set up, and unfortunately everything crashed on me before I got in. So let's see if I can get down in here. All right. First things first. The important bits about Monster Play are as follows. We are taking this opportunity to start bringing back or making it so that everyone can actually enjoy Monster Play. This means that regardless of what your character is, regardless if you're a player or if you're a Monster player, you're going to be able to enter into Monster Play moving forward. Now what that means is that once you hit level 20, you're going to be able to go to that little magical place in either Bree or anywhere else in one of the main hubs and take your character into the Edmores. So let's hop in with Gontharond, my elf hunter, who I recently forged into a level 20. You're going to see a little bit of magic behind the scenes because I am an admin, which means that I'm going to be able to do a few things here. Let me see if I can actually adjust the gain on my screen here just to pick it up a bit, or I can talk a little louder. Is that any better at all? Don't know why, but this thing should be working considering it's like one of the best things out there. All right, anyways. We are now in Bree, where you can actually see what's going on. And my character is cloaked. I will uncloak him to put him out in the real world. As you can see, Bert Goldenleaf is in front of me. I am level 20. I am the equivalent of a player who is level 20. And when I tap on or click on Bert, I have the option to go out to the Edmores. It's free. It's going to cost me 1 silver. Once I pay that 1 silver, I take the travel route out. And the next thing you know, you end up in Glainvreg. Glainvreg, of course, being the keep where the good players, the free people, are able to muster their forces and then do the stance dance at the front of the keep, which is basically what happens right now in most of Monster Play. We need to fix that. We're going to be working on that in the near future. When you arrive out here, you are moved up to 140 if you are level 20, and you are also given a base level of Audacity, which is the necessary adjustment or stat to have when you're out in the Edmores, making it so that you have a little bit more survivability to participate and actually exist out here in the Edens. So the important thing to note is that at level 20 you were able to go out here. I would not advise, and we are not advising, that you take a level 20 character out into the Edmores, because if you do, you will get destroyed. You simply do not have the breadth of skills that are necessary to survive out here, nor do you have the gear that's really going to make you independent and able to really do much here. And yes, if I go to the War tab, you can see I've got Audacity at level 25. So I do have this. You can see that there are bonuses that are assigned to that, but I am not really a viable character at this point in time. My viability increases as I level across the normal game, and when I hit level 130, I can kind of survive out here. Plus, I can start to purchase some of the gear that's necessary. So for this next part, I want to show that. The gear that you can actually get, or that we're moving to. Now, there are some changes that are being made overall to the gear sets that are available inside of the Edmores. Those changes are actually built so that you are going to need to upgrade eventually. You don't have to upgrade immediately. But they're being made so that everybody is dropping down to about a level 25 or 16 at the earliest level of Audacity, and then you can purchase back up to 25 and all the way up to 36. And of course, I'm not at the right spot, but that's okay. Again, a little wizardry and magic, and I can go wherever I want. So, my character is now out here in the Ettenmoors, and this is my Dwarf Guardian, who, as you will see, is subject to the terrible bug that it still exists. And yes, it does still exist. It is something that we are aware of and something that we will be working on in the future. It's something that I don't have a direct solution for right now. It is definitely a race condition that exists when you are coming into the Ettenmoors, or you are loaded onto the Ettenmoors, and you are logged out. The race condition is simply that you end up in a situation where your character is loading into the world before the gear is actually there, and there's an effect that requires you to be able to wear your gear out here. So we need to work on that and figure out how to make it work. But the important thing to note is that this is the newest gear set that's available to regular players in the Ettenmoors. They're able to purchase this for an extraordinary amount of commendation expenditure. This does come in 2 different colors. It comes in a purple and a green. The purple is my personal favorite color, and it actually adheres to the method that we used to use for all of the gear that was actually pushed out here into the Ettenmoors for players. This is more than likely the way that we're going to continue to actually build out the new gear, is that it will be rate sets from the past that are just set to a specific color that you can't actually change. Now, additionally, as a player or a monster player, you are now capable of coming over to your friendly neighborhood trader. And your friendly neighborhood trader is going to have a new barter item available. And that new barter item is this little doohickey here called Against the Enemy. This provides you with 4 redoable tasks. You can get all tasks off of this one item, and when you complete the first task, the item unfortunately will go away, but you can come back and get another one to get the first task again. The subsequent tasks that are underneath are all they're all bonus meta deeds that are available, and each of them rewards a little bit of commendations and infamy or glory out here in the Ettenmoors. Now, right now these are set to be fairly low in the actual reward count, but we're already in the process of taking a look at these and ensuring that they're going to be a viable and usable, continuable, repeatable quest object that you can continue to engage with over time. And we'll take a look at those points and see exactly what they do. But there's a few other things that are going on in the Ettenmoors in the future that, when we're asked a few questions later on, we'll be able to talk about potentially and explain where we're going. So before I go any further, I'm just going to say that these are the changes that are happening to the Freep side. There's nothing major that's happening other than some changes to the Audacity on the gear and a new set of gear that's available to all of the different players that are out here. And each different set of gear is available. So there's a heavy, there's a medium, and there's a light. Now, let's shift back over and look at the Monster Play side. While I'm doing that, let's see if I can't grab this. All right, there it is. Got the questions up. Okay, so as you can see, level 2, even though it's not here, at level 2, I'm able to now access Monster Play. Monster Play is now free, like we said, to all players. Getting into the monster side, you used to have to purchase all of the different character classes in order to engage in Monster Play. Part of our objective with the change that we made to make a lot of the content free back at the anniversary was to do the same thing on the monster side. And the reason we're doing that is because we don't want to block content off from people. We want you to be able to play the game the way that you want to play the game. So that means that now you can play monsters for free. Now I'm going to go through each of these different classes. I'm going to skip over the Reaver for right now because the Reaver is the only class that you've really been able to play if you were going into Monster Play to begin with. So let's move on to something different. Let's take a look at the Spider. When you move into Monster Play, you're going to be getting a brand new set I shouldn't say a brand new set. You're going to be changing up the way that you do your initial quests. The initial quests are no longer go out into the wild and search for the different locations. What we realized is that as the Moors has changed over the years, or hasn't changed over the years, there's been an increasing need for monster players to have their ability to return to Graham's Foot quickly. The reason for that is manifold. But the most important part is that this is your central quest hub. This is where you really go to turn in the majority of your quests. So in order to take care of this, we've changed this up a little bit. And also on the monster side, you have to start off with Audacity as well. You get a free rank here, which means that you're able to get 1 rank of Audacity. And it does give you a bit of an advantage over the regular players, as you do have a negative 35% incoming damage, so that you're reducing the amount of damage coming in, and you are doing a little bit more damage on the output. But you're still very far behind what a Freep actually has at this point. So when I take my initial quest with the Cragstone Brood to Lothadal, oh yeah, this is a new skin, just so you are aware. This will be available inside of the Lotro store once things go live. So when I go over here and I get this quest and accept it, I can then wander down and do what I'm supposed to do. I have to go to Chief Guard Durthers in order to be able to complete this quest. Now, as you can see, I'm a furry, happy little spider. I'm a little scary looking, because I should be. And again, this is the newbie quest now. When I go out here, I should just walk out just beyond the steps of Graham entranceway and speak to Chief Guard Durthers. Once I do this, he's going to tell me, you're not ready to be out here. Go back. You're just fodder. Go talk to Uglash. Okay. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. More magic. When I talk to Uglash, he says to me, alright, great, here, have some infamy. Oh, and by the way, here's your next quest. And your next quest is going to give you some Audacity. Now I can accept this quest, and I have to run up the hill, back to my little warren, or my nest as it really is called. Speak to my trainers, and learn about what it is to become a cooler spider. I speak to Nathron, and I talk to Nathrog, and then I go back to Uglash and tell him, yep, I spoke to everybody. Hook me up, bro. Uglash, as soon as I talk to him, gives me my rewards. And when I open my inventory, you can see that I have 4 awards of Audacity. Using them gives me a level of Audacity for free. Now, as a monster player, I have 2 choices. And this is on purpose. I have the ability to use those right away and get to 5 Audacity. But I've also earned some commendations on these 2 quests. Not a lot, but enough that I should be able to train up 1 level of my Audacity. And I should be able to train this. Oh, I'm still 1 short. Yes, I have to do 1 more quest, and then I can train my Audacity up. I can train these, I can train up my Audacity, and then spend these, or use these items to gain greater Audacity. Or I can use them right now and get that 5 extra points. We've also added on our trainers, and we'll actually hop out here. We've actually added on the trainers, on the barterers, the ability to use commendations or mithril coins to purchase a small catch-up for the Audacity build that you're going to get. You can get it. It's about 5. They can stack to 5, so you can have 5 of them in your inventory at any given time. And this is a new Black Arrow outfit that will be available, based off the Dolgledor orcs, or Uruks, I should say. And if I talk to I'll go over that in a minute. And if I talk to the quartermaster, wrong quartermaster, special items vendor, oof, rough day. When I talk to the special items trader, you'll see that I have the ability to get the same quest that's on the player side to go out and kill the free folk. And I can also pick up these Tinctures of Sauron's Will, which give me 5 audacity for an hour at a time. Now this does tick down in real time, and you can stack these up to, I believe it's 10 at this point. You can purchase 1, 5, and 10 for up to 2,000 commendations, and then use Mithril coins if you want to offset if you don't have the commendations. Now, every class has the ability to do this. We're going to log out again. And we're going to show you some of the other skins that are on their way. And just before we get the questions on this, because I know there will be questions, why can't we see the skins on the screen here? There's a different way that we handle the actual monster players than we do the free players. And because of the way that the system actually works, because they're traits, you're not able to see them immediately. So we're only able to show you these when we go into their game world. This is our new War Leader outfit. We have our new Warg outfit. And I will pass that on to the team. Now, one thing about the Defilers, they've always hidden their faces. So one of the objectives here was to make sure that we can actually show the face of the Defiler at this point. Instead of keeping the mask on their head, they're now putting things over onto their backs so that they actually can show off their wonderful, beautiful orky faces. And if you're wondering, that is the bottom half of a drake jaw. And last but not least, the Reaver. Another thing to note is that all of the starting characters, all of the starting monster characters, let me try that again. All of the starting monster characters are having their initial skills changed a little bit. And the reason that we're doing this is to give them some of their abilities that are kind of necessary in a given fight. So for the Reaver specifically, we're going through and we're giving you Gut Punch early, which wasn't originally there. So you can interrupt. And we're giving you a couple of extra damage skills along the way. And this is one of the outfits that will be available for the Orc Reaver. Now, in addition to all of the wonderful changes that are going on here, we are changing the way that the store structure works for all monster player corruptions, items, appearances, and starter packs. Starter packs are going to be removed. We took a look at the cost of the overall build for a character. Buying a character was somewhere around the same cost as an actual expansion pack. We think that's a little too high, so we've pulled that back. You can now buy individual groups of corruptions, traits, skills, and racial abilities. These are all bundled together in one big group, and the cost has been reduced significantly so that it isn't one of those. It isn't going to be as. Hey, Grab Maggot. It isn't going to be as restrictive as it was before. We're trying to change the overall pricing so that it's more appealing to people, and less of a barrier to entry, and something that you can just get them and have them at the beginning of the actual character set. So, I'm going to take this opportunity to log out and move back and start taking questions. Now, before I actually get into all of the questions that I see are coming in the chat itself, I want to address some of the questions that were brought up on the boards before we actually launch the stream. So, first things first. Will there be any adjustments made to the reward point contribution system outside of the Delving of Roar and keep buffs for various tags? Solo kill is full points, raids are in less, so on and so forth. So part of what we discussed was the removal of heal tagging. And heal tagging, there's still a bug on right now where you can still actually get the bonus when you can still actually get the infamy and glory rewards when you tag outside, when you heal outside of a fellowship. The goal in a stepped process is to change it so that when you heal outside of a group, you do have to contribute 2% of the overall damage to the kill. The reason for that is it is pretty much an exploit to be able to just heal somebody and then run off and get the full experience for it. That's not the way that this was designed. It's not the way that it should work. Groups should be working together. To fix that, we want to incentivize group play. That means that we will be changing the way that fellowships actually earn. It will not happen with this release, I don't believe. I don't think that we had enough time to properly test it and make sure that it was going to work correctly. But there will be a change that will make it so that fellowships will earn more, raids will earn a little bit less, and you'll earn full even when you're outside of a group, outside of a fellowship rather, and so on. Next things next. 2 questions. Is there any platform available for instance 1v1, 2v2, 3v3? I can't say yes, I can't say no. A lot of this depends on how successful these changes to Monster Play are. One of the criticisms that we get a lot of the time surrounding Lotro in general is that we introduce many systems over the existence of the game itself. And it's true, we've introduced a ton. And some of those systems end up sitting there and kind of languishing and not having the opportunity to grow or to become larger or bigger or better, and they just kind of sit there over time. So we are making a concerted effort to go through the game, look at the pieces that are out there right now, and figure out how we can better support them moving forward. Sometimes this is going to mean we're going to put some investment into them directly and get them to and try to robustify them and see exactly what they're going to be able to do for us. Monster Play was kind of our first thing. And the reason that Monster Play was our first thing is because coming back in, Monster Play is what I am most familiar with. It was the aspect of the game that I could easily step back into, look at, and figure out how to make some changes that I think were going to be positive. Not everything is going to happen at once. It's going to take a little bit of time. So the overall objective with Monster Play is to change it into more of a retention-based system. So that the reason people go out here to play is to do something when they are through with a lot of the content that's out in the regular world. They can now come out here into the Yetton Wars and enjoy some PvP action. Will there be any tournaments that enrich PvP competition? Again, this is one of those questions: are we going to be able to do any kind of a 1v1, 3v3? It's something that I would love to be able to do. It's something that I think would benefit the Yetton Wars on the whole, but we have to see how things go before we put any more investment into this. Quick question on transfers from Honor. That I'm going to have to let other folks answer. Not my purview to know what we're doing with transfers. You took a break, and you came back a few months ago with the avoidance system. Yeah, those are finesse, avoidance, things like that, and whether or not I can put Warden back to the way that it was. Warden will probably never go back to the way that I had it, because I will be very honest, when I first touched the Warden, I didn't do very good things to the Warden, and it took me about 3 months to fix. I'm not willing to step back into that spot and try to fix Warden again, or make Warden any different than it currently is. But there are plans right now for many of the classes to see some revision work to bring them back into more of a solidified line, specifically with the trait trees. In terms of avoidance, there's probably going to be changes again, just based off of the fact that we will eventually need to update the statistics and make sure that there are new ways for people to actually earn more and better sets of avoidance, and we'll have to take a look at them. There's a lot of work that we're currently looking at. I should say there's a lot of aspects of the game that we're looking at right now and saying, hey, there are some things that are not really worthwhile, and some of those are like stats, right? We know that power at this point is, for the most part, rather worthless. And that's actually part of some of the changes that will be coming up for Monster Play in the next step. And we'll talk about that too. Replacing outpost buffs. That's on the agenda. That's one of the things that I'm looking at as an option to change out. Not in this particular release, but hopefully in a future release. Fast future release. Fixing individual skills. Anything that's bugged, we try to get to as we possibly can. Increasing utility for creeps. That basically means to me, and I'm hoping I'm actually getting this question right, are we putting any new skills in that will increase or enhance the ability for creeps to survive or to do things that are the antithesis or against what a creep can actually do? The answer is we're taking a look at all of the creep classes, and when we have the opportunity to make these changes, if we have the opportunity to make these changes, we will. Our induction timer is going to change for creep classes. Again, this is all part of taking a look at all the classes all together in the Edmores and seeing what we can do. Looking at creep classes and changing them to, particularly around Monster Play is not something that we're actually going to be planning on doing. We have to find other ways to have solutions for that because we don't want to affect the overall balance on the normal game side. Excuse me. Let's see. When will the Reaver lose its insanity? Never. Reavers will always be crazy. Let's see. Quality of life items. Yes, we know that we need to make some quality of life adjustments. Yes, we also know that we need to think about the lag. Lag is always has been an issue for quite some time. And we do have some passes right now going through and taking a look at how we can improve the overall functionality of the game. I'm almost done and getting ready to move to the chat. Damage reduction for Audacity. We will be looking at Audacity over time to see exactly what it needs to change to be. There are other changes that will very likely happen in the near future to make more of those adjustments, potentially a blanket adjustment to the Edmores on the whole. That Audacity will then find a way to obviate or eliminate. We can talk about LI systems maybe in my next stream. It's something that is still fairly new, and we're making more adjustments to in the very near future to try to make things a little easier. Excuse me again. All right. Looks like that's all of the real questions that came in on the board. So let's move over here to the chat. Is there anything that has been asked several times, since I haven't been able to really keep attention to it, that has not yet been answered, that needs to be answered? Do all free-to-play monster players get their corruption slots for free? The answer is yes. All corruption slots are now free. You will not have to pay for them. Let me go back up here a little ways here to see if I can find some other questions. Does Freep mean free player? Yes, Freep means free player. Basically, it's a free peoples. Back in the day when we first started this, there were Freeps and Creeps. Freeps were free people, the free people of Eriador or the free people of Middle-earth. Creeps are obviously that. They're the creeps, the creepy things that are out there. At one of our player gatherings, we actually played a game called Creep, Freep, or Creep or Freep, and it was like basically Rochambeau for, rock, paper, scissors with Creep, Freep, or neutral, basically. It stuck. It has stuck with me over the years, and that's pretty much where it is. All right. There is still a cooldown from Creep to Freep, or Freep to Creep. It's just that as an admin, I'm immune to all of those cooldowns, so that I can test it effectively. Buffs. Is there any plan to fix early level brawler setup? I've seen some bugs on the early armor sets. I don't know when those are really planned to go in, but I have seen that there are bugs that we are working on currently. Please reveal the Defiler nerfs. No, there's no Defiler nerfs. In fact, we went back through. There was a change that was made on the player side to some of the progressions that unfortunately affected some of the monster player buffs and some of the monster player items that you can purchase from barters or from vendors. Those have been fixed, and they will now return to where they were. In fact, the ranks on all of the monster player side, food and items have been reduced to something that's a little bit more sane. Overall, we're trying to look at rank 5 as that initial point where you can have a nearly fully fleshed out monster player, so that it's faster for you to get into the overall experience. Speaking of the trolls and the troll session play, is that still there? The answer is yes. Troll session play and ranger session play still exist. They are hidden behind a population tracker. So when the population becomes out of balance, that's when one will open. I'm actually taking a look at that, and that's something that may very, very likely come in a future patch that will make it so that you can play trolls and rangers for a small expenditure of mithril coins. Yes, I know you're going to say mithril coins, yuck. But it's one of the things that it was always meant to be a catch-up or an ability that supported one side or the other. And if you want to actually engage in that, we would be changing that up just a little bit. But the session play will still be there for when population imbalances fall out of whack. Additionally, we will be making adjustments to the troll and ranger play before they actually go live, so that they'll be tougher than they are, because they're very weak by comparison now, as they have not truly been adjusted to accommodate the changes that were made to players over the years. Looking through, seeing more. All right, what about EC, OC, the keeps, outposts, graveyards, and the performance? Okay, let's take performance first. I already mentioned one thing. We're taking a look actively at how we can increase the overall performance. It's not something that is an easy fix. We have to go through and find out where the performance issues are. These are performance issues that are not happening only in the Edinmoors, they're happening across the entire game world. Our engineering team is looking at it. We don't know what the timeline is on the fix, but we do know that we're going to be working toward it, trying to get something out there to reduce the overall lag that we're seeing inside of different areas of the game world. For EC and OC, I wanted to get those in and move them back to where they originally were in the Edinmoors. I did not have time. I ran out. I bit off a lot more than I could chew with the switch to free play and some of the other things that I needed to do for this release, and I didn't have an opportunity to move them back to where I wanted to put them. If you have heard, there are some changes that are going to be coming up in a release after this one that are going to reduce the overall mob density at the keeps. This should do two things. One, it should make it so that some of the lag is actually reduced, because there's not as many of those different mobs that are actually inside of the different places. I should say in the locations. The overall goal is to reduce the number of NPCs that spawn in there from about 72 to 36. It may go even lower. We have also increased the difficulty across the board on them to accommodate that change, because we know that they've become very trivial to flip time and time again. Another piece there, keep flipping. I found the bug that's actually responsible for keep flips as quickly as they are, and we are looking at ways that we can fix this. I know how it was fixed in the past. We are loath to fix it the same way again, but there's a very strong chance that we'll be able to fix that in the same manner in the short term, and then figure out how to do it in the long term. There's no estimate on when that's actually going to come alive, though. Graveyards, the main issue is that regular players, free players, have the abilities right now to extend the range on what they can do, which means that if you're standing in the center of a graveyard, free would actually be able to hit you from afar and kill you again. This is not the desired play that we're looking for. There are two solutions here. One, we can extend the overall range of the kill radius so that you can't get close anymore, which would make it probably better overall, but also not solve the main problem, which is the range on the free players is a little bit higher, which means that we need to put counterplay in. That means that there will likely be changes coming to monster player characters that will make it so that they have the opportunity to reduce those ranges on the player side and have counterplay that exists to stop them from being able to do those things. Is there any possibility of Edinmoor's events like the Chicken Run and the appearance of elite NPCs? That's a good question. One of the things that I'm trying to focus on is coming up with the incentives to come out to the Edinmoors. And the big changes that I think need to happen out here if these changes are successful, is the continuance and the preponderance, I guess, of getting your characters leveled up, ranking them, getting the commendations that are necessary, being able to continue to play on a nightly basis. To do that, we want to incentivize what you're doing out inside of the Eden Moors. And that means that there is a very real possibility that the Eden Deep will close for renovations. When the Eden Deep closes for renovations, then there's a very good chance that there will be new events that will start happening out in the Eden Moors that should inspire more direct conflict and also be more endearing to a standard free player who actually wants to do something that's going to enhance their overall gameplay. What those are is still up in the air. I've got a bunch of them created. None of them are implemented and ready for real world yet, or I should say prime time yet, but they are in the works. So Linron, the reason to not delete the block between switching sides is increasingly diminished. The reason it's increasingly diminished, obviously, is we're a free-to-play game, and now both sides are free, which means if you really wanted to create spy accounts, you're going to create spy accounts, and there's really nothing that we're going to be able to do to stop you from doing that. It's not the best way to be, and it's certainly not fair play, but the overall goal was there originally to stop people from being able to switch sides immediately and act as spies for one side or the other. So that's entirely possible that we will come up with a solution to fix that in the future. Is there any way to get Destiny points back in the Moors? I don't think we're going to go back to the Destiny system. I don't think there's any plans at this time. There's certainly no plans that I have at this point. Lickash asks, are there changes to the monster classes? I think I've gone over that. We have some changes that we're looking to make. A lot of it depends on whether or not these alterations that we're currently making are overall successful. If they are, and we do see that there is an increased amount or an increase in the overall participation in monster play, then there is a very real possibility that we'd be adding some more resources or identifying and putting some more resources against updates and changes to monster play, which would be more class updates. Can we make it even once a week or like a day or a few hours, for example, where it keeps you alone in the open world and have fun? Here's what I will say to that. One person's fun is another person's grief. The long answer is, of course we can find a way to actually release you from the Eden Moors and put you out in the real world, the real game world. That's something that we can do. Is it something we will do? No. One, it violates everything that the game was built upon. Two, it's something that we would probably continue to reserve for very specialized servers. And three, letting people do that would end up just inviting grief and make it very difficult for some of our players who are not into that aspect of gaming at all. We try to be accessible and available to all different play types, and we don't want to ruin one person's fun at the benefit of one other person, if that makes any sense. Are there any changes to creep damage, or is it just Audacity this update? It is just the Audacity changes this update. We will, again, take a look at things if we can in the future. Creeps is a censored word. I don't believe creeps is a censored word. Let's see. What do you think about the different skills in range 50? Okay, I've gone over that. These are things that we're looking at as providing counterplay, because we're trying to make sure that there's an option for free players and for creep players to be able to deal with the increasing power of the free. Do we consider spars to be power leveling? Okay, sparring, no. Purposefully creating an account to go out and kill over and over again to cheese the system. One, you're just not playing the game, so congratulations. You're getting around something that, you found a way around something that really shouldn't be done. But are you really getting anything out of it other than, oh, I got my rank? No, you're not really playing the game, and all you're really doing is contributing to the overall lag that other people are experiencing, and that's not exactly cool. Do I consider sparring to be power leveling? Organized sparring, I think, is fine. It's just, don't abuse the system. That's not what it's there for. You're not there to just power level each side with rank. Let me play RVR and Bree, please. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon. Yes, we know you're dying easily now. That's from Mooseman. Sure, Van Algie. Yeah, we know that creeps are a little underpowered right now. When I say a little, we know you're underpowered right now. We know that there's some more that needs to be done. Okay, any chance creep will get a PvE zone as a better way to have new players try out their creep? Probably not. Certainly not in this iteration, and who knows? In future iterations, we really do have to see how successful these changes are on the whole. Will there be a cap on freaks entering than Moors? No. As many people as want to go out there can go out there. The experience will degrade the more people that are there. We know that. And you'll kick off the population imbalance triggers that will make it so that one side starts to become more advantageous than the other. Let's see. All right, I'm almost caught up with chat. When is PvMP on Treebeard? That's a good question. We have had some internal discussions on it. Nothing has actually been determined as to when and if we will actually open up PvMP on Treebeard. If it's something that is really desired, then maybe it is something we can look at. The map to GV is still VIP on Build War. Will it be changed? It's unfortunately going to launch that way, but it will be fixed in a follow-up patch. Keeping on. Let's see. All right. Do you play beta? I play the game. Yes, I played the game. What happened to the Sundering of Giliath? Is the Sundering of a Giliath map still exists? We shut it down. I'm not 100% aware of everything that happened with the Osgiliath map. From what I'm able to discern, it was an attempt to put more of a LOL type of experience inside of the game, and it didn't go over very well. If anything happens there, it would very likely be a change to be, dare I say, a more concentrated set of forces that can actually enter that space at any given time. I wonder what that means. Are there going to be class-specific gear like an ROI, ROR, and HD? The answer is, at this point, no. We are not going to be able to do that every single time for changes. If there are major updates that we make, say expansion level, if we ever do that, then that's a possibility, but I won't tie my hands in that and say that it's definitely something that'll be happening. What about accommodations? Quest changes that give more comms. Yeah, that's one of the things we're looking at, is the overall speed at which you gain commendations, because we know that the commendations is going to be a very important sync for newer players specifically. For longer term players, there's probably a big glut of commendations that exist. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier that the commendation, the amount of commendations you can now have on your account is 20,000. We increased that just to make it so that you could have a little more. It also was there to make sure that we were able to up the cost on some of the items that are out there. But there are definitely ideas in the works to increase the rate at which you would get commendations, whether that is through events that are available, whether it's through just the quest changing, or whatever the experience is. It's something that is definitely on the plate, and we're looking at for a potential future. I miss Fantas too. I didn't have an opportunity to work with them, and I will say this: it wouldn't have been possible to do the amount of work that I was able to get done without some of the groundwork that Fantas laid. So, big thanks to Fantas. VIPs are going to get more stuff since VIP is free now. We don't think that the opening of the Ettenmoors is really going to be a detriment to the free side of things. To the VIP side of things. If you take in total everything that VIP players get and you take them away, you would understand that just the space that you have alone is a massive boon over anyone else, any of our free players. And the change for this, again, is the content, is what we're trying to make available. Autoflip, I mentioned that before. Creeps is so weak. Something that we're looking at. Trolls and Rangers. Upcoming changes to NPC damage in the Moors. NPC damage is going to end up being a little higher until you get your Audacity gear. Specifically on the player side. On the monster side, it's actually not as bad because we're giving you a small bump to your baseline Audacity and your base incoming damage, and as you increase your Audacity, your overall damage incoming will go down even further. Are there any near or distant to add zones in the east or south of Mordor, blank spots such as Ruin or Harad? Not talking about anything like that yet. And that's really that's not truly a systems question, but it's a good question. It's not something that we're actually at yet. All the Audacity grind was usually finished around rank 8. What do you think players should be done with new Audacity grind at? It's going to probably be around rank 8 if you focus solely upon Audacity. It might be a little higher, but it depends on how you're actually spending your commendations. And it also depends on when we get the boosts to commendation earn going in. Are you even playing PvMP? There is no balance. We're well aware that there's a lot of work to do out here. We're trying to get some groundwork effort in so that we can make the changes that are necessary to get things moving in the right direction for the future. Balance has never been one of the things that has been easy to do in the Ettenmoors. We originally designed the entire system to be completely out of balance, so that you needed to have about 6 creeps to every freep that went out into the Ettenmoors. It was a design decision that was made 15 years ago, about 2 months before we launched. So it's always been one of those really difficult things to do. And we know that it's something that we have to actually look at and find a way to actually manage, which is what we're trying to do at this point by laying this groundwork. All right. How do you find your secret lab chair? I just went on their website. When will Reaver be less reliant on gut punch rocks just to survive versus a good freep? Let's see. That's another question on utility for the different monster players and monster player skills. And again, that's really reliant on whether or not things improve and we're able to see that there's an uptick in people who are actually playing so that we can justify the actual expenditure of resources toward more investment in monster play on the whole. Okay, then we started to devolving into horrible things. We shouldn't do that. We should just be as civil as we possibly can with one another. The world's in a bad enough state as it is. What did you eat today? I had Pop-Tarts for breakfast. I don't know why that's important, but I did. And then I had some hummus with pretzels for lunch. All right. Moving on. Considering nerfing or disabling certain freep abilities. No, not nerfing, not disabling. Providing counterplay and ways to block those abilities. That's something that is on the board and something that we're looking at, hopefully, in future updates. Will there be a cap on freep centering? We've already answered that. Let's see. Okay. PvP was massive until level 85 with OP buffs and unnecessary map changes. Are these going to be reverted? So a lot of the map changes I want to push back to pre-Rohan. The reason that I want to do that is because I think the map was more dynamic. With that said, these are things that are out there as items that I want to address. It's a matter of time and whether or not there's justification to do so. Will there be a TP to GV since it's now free? A TP, are you just saying the travel point? There already is a travel point. The travel points exist throughout Middle Earth right now. You should be able to get there from Bree, from Rivendell, and from any of the other major towns inside of the game world. Is there any way to make the Reaver more insane? I don't think so. Don't think so. See an update to the usage of tokens of valor in chests and GV. We do want to find a way to try to incentivize that again. It's something that is on the board, but it's not something that is high up on the board. Could we increase individual skills? I'm not going to address. It's there are holistic views of classes that we're looking at to try to make some adjustments to make them a little bit more viable and fun. There's so much potential to new creep classes. Any long-term thoughts? I have a lot of long-term thoughts. There have been a couple of posts on the forums recently that have been highly entertaining to me. One is just pretty close to like where I would like to take things, but I'm not going to say what it is because we're not at the point where we would, one, discuss things like that, and two, we're not at the point to know whether or not we're going to be able to do anything along those lines. If there would be new creep classes, there are at least two that pop into my head immediately. More than likely, we would turn it into a question for the player base to see which one they would want more. To be fair, because there are a good number of potentials that we have, but nothing that leaps out as this has to go in right now in order for Monster Play to continue. All right, let's see. Can I start making appearances in the moors? The level of toxicity is tremendously high. I lurk. I wouldn't out myself. So I like Lotro PvP. In response, you said specialized servers for open world PvP. You didn't misunderstand it. It's something that we have talked about. It's not something that we've acted on. It's not something that I think we would act on anytime in the near future. It's possible. It's just, there's a lot of possibilities out there. It's a question of, is the demand high enough? And what would people be willing to expend to do something like that? Is what it really boils down to. Okay, let's see. Will there be more aggressive action taken against rank farming? The best I can say is that continue to report it if you see it. And if we catch people in the act, then it's very likely we'll be able to do something about it. I am not privy to the way that the customer service team works on these, so I can't make any guarantees or say anything along those lines, other than the best thing you can do is report anything you see that you think is actually a negative way of playing the game, or an exploitive way of playing the game. Ah, good question. So from Mary Alice, why did you decide to base creeps on session play back in the day? So maybe you heard me say that the whole idea of Monster Play really didn't come to fruition until very late in development. And I can freely talk about this now because it's so long ago. So back when we started to think about Monster Play, it was originally going to be a coin-op system that would happen anywhere inside of the game world at any given time. the idea was that we would put up signs in the different areas of the world. Let's say the Lone Lands, in the swamp in the south below Garthagarwin. There would be a sign that would say, "Oh, be cautious, there are creatures here that are more intelligent than others." And you'd be able to go in and, plunk down your virtual quarter to go in and play a monster player for a short session. That didn't feel very good to a few of us, and we fought pretty hard to get it to be what it ended up being. There were a lot of discussions on making sure that we had advancement. The advancement turned into, we don't really have time for that because we were so late in the process. We really didn't have the option or the opportunity to build out a complete experience for the monster players. We expected the monster play would end up being, and this is no joke, we expected that it would end up being a distraction, but not something that so many people would so fervently continue to play 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years on. Monster Play has succeeded in spite of what it was originally created to do. Something that I'm very proud of, and something that at the same time I look at and say, boy, I wish we had more opportunity to go back and change the things that we wanted to change early on. What about the Brawler rank buff? In my queue, it's not getting in for this coming release. It will come in as a fast follow release, hopefully immediately after, in between one of our next bigger releases. Okay, you answered that. Will there be more PvP ranks? Probably not. The 15 ranks that we had was originally supposed to sustain for between 7 and 10 years, which is what it did. And I don't think that there would be rank that would actually push things beyond there now. If we have the opportunity and incentive to actually put more into monster play, I think that there would be other advancement paths that would be traveled at that point, not just rank. More cryptic words, right? All right, we're almost there. Will I work on PvP or do I do PvE content? So I don't like the way you finished this question, but I am not a content designer any longer. I haven't been a content designer, at least on Lotro, for about 12 years. So about 5 years in, I had transitioned into kind of a hybrid between content and systems. I ended my time on Lotro as a systems designer. That doesn't mean I don't also do some content. In fact, I had to do some of the content for this. But that doesn't really change the fact that I'm not really doing a lot of the PvE content. And I probably won't do a lot of the PvE content. That is for other, more PvE-oriented developers at this point. King be rejected. No, I completely understand. Yeah, it does take time. And I know that we say that a lot, and I know that it's one of those things that no one really likes to hear. Everybody wants everything now, and in our societies today, everything happens a lot faster usually. But we are a relatively small team, and we are working really hard to get a lot of these changes in. The best we can ask is that you bear with us. Oh, Trumpet Monkey, I think you can answer that question yourself. Let's see. Any chance to have certain free skills changed? I already talked about that. I am not the chosen one who will bring balance to the Edmores. There's no such thing. As far as incentivizing smaller populaces, again, that's one of the things that's on the agenda for future. Whether or not we can is entirely up in the air at this point. We have to see how things go. What rank is required for Tier 4 PvP gear? I believe that I set it to rank 3 or 5. It escapes me at this exact second. I apologize, but it's 3 or 5. almost at the end. So Soft Snake is asking if there's a way to create a system that creeps from one server, fight creeps from another. So cross server PvP. Not right now. Tilly Flops asks, are the creep maps going away, I assume? Right now, no. Is there a possibility that they will in the future? Yes, there is a possibility that they will go away in the future. I'm working on other avenues by which we can actually do that. And this groundwork that we're actually putting in gives us an opportunity to consider doing things like that in the near future. What shoe polish do I use for my dome zip? Alright, truth be told, the reason this is gone is a long story that involves health, but we won't go there. You heard that with Moria, we worked on instance PvMP. Any stories to share about it? Not Moria. It was actually Rohan. Yes, we did. A lot of the vestiges are still there. And that's all I can really say about it right now. Give creeps a run buff that matches the free forces. Again, that's a potential change, but not something that's going to happen anytime in the near future. We have to come up with a solution for maps before we do anything along those lines. I've already addressed the lag issue of trying to figure out exactly how we're going to do that. Again, there are things that are in the works. We're actually trying to actively figure out ways that we can fix it, and making some progress in many of the releases that we've had over the past year or so. You may not see it immediately, but there have been incremental changes that have kind of helped things along. Whether or not we get that initial, one of these changes that actually fixes the majority of it is still up in the air, but there are some changes that are coming in the future that should address more of the lag issues. So Brolad, the changes from like Echoes of Angmar, that style of experience is very likely not going to return, but one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is pushing more of the old Capture the Flag experience back in, with a reason to do it on both sides. Allegiances. Potentially. Just a thought. Are we going to keep the tier 4 prices? Yes, the tier 4 prices are there to stay right now. Changes to help creeps capture keeps. Say that 10 times fast. The adjustments that I'm making for the update, for a future update, should make it a little easier for creeps and a little harder for freeps, because freeps do a hell of a lot more damage to NPCs than creeps do. What's wrong with the champ sprint? Really? I mean, 100% of the time it's up, and you get crazy sprint. No way to slow you down. That's 100% uptime is kind of rough. Can PvP be instanced and set to 50 for a creep versus freak? Technically yes, but feasibly no. Why don't you see if the community would dump some money to maybe sustain some faster changes they want to see? Because the speed of implementation doesn't change with the amount of currency that people would put into something, and we're not going to provide like false hope for something like that. It needs to take the time that it takes. Will creeps get more corruption slots? That's something else that's kind of on there as a possibility. I would rather change the way the corruptions work. Sorry, I completely covered my mouth there. I would like to change the way the corruptions work first so that they're actually better overall, rather than adding new corruptions. All right. Can we get better stacks on items since we don't have the vault? That's a really good question. I have seen the requests for the ability to have like the wallet changes that we have for like the crafting materials and whatnot on the Freep side to bring that over to Creeps. That is something that I'm definitely considering because I know that you can really carry around an awful lot of equipment and items that drop from the game world, and you have a very limited amount of space. So it's something that I'm definitely considering. But again, not one of those things that's going to happen in the very near future. Any chance the delving bosses will get a difficulty increase? Oh, just you wait. If I actually do close the Etten Deep for... I just called it the Etten Deep. That's actually the internal name for it, is the Etten Deep, and it kind of snuck out there for a while. But the delving floor, if we do make changes, it will go into a maintenance, which basically means we will close it so that we can robustify it and turn it back into something that has rewards that are commensurate for the efforts that you put forward inside of it. There. A lot of words to say relatively nothing. I know I pleased someone out there. Can you ask anything about anything Lotra related? Yes, you can, and if I can answer the question, I will. How much stronger should a fully geared R15 be than, say, an R8? A lot stronger, rank 15, and fully geared out with the Audacity. You should be between 15 to 25% stronger than a rank 8. That's a half. It's probably going to even be higher than that based off of just the initial numbers. What about a troll for 500 commendations? I think I already covered that. It's something that we're looking at as potential in the future. Mediggity. I actually own Hunter, and I'm taking a look at it to see what we can do to change some of the things up in there. I love this question because I see it a lot on the Discords that I'm in. What are the plans for PvE balance improvements? Much of the ally system is getting deleted to allow for that. No, we're not deleting the ally system. We will design around it. What is the idea behind adding threat generation to Flayer Warg? Someone needs to hold aggro, but that's not really why it's there. I'll have to look at it because I don't remember adding that to Wargs, honestly. And maybe somebody did at some point in the past. Any chance of getting European-based servers? I've heard no discussion on that at all. Would you close DOF for the entirety of the Edmores? Okay, so this actually is a good question. So, like I said in my initial post when I came back, the Etten Moors and monster play in general is at a crossroad, right? We have to start looking at a lot of our aged systems and figure out which ones are still viable and which ones people are still engaging with. So if these changes to monster play prove fruitful and people actually do take the opportunity to dive back in and play Etten Moors on a fairly regular basis, then there's a good chance that we'll continue to support the development. If it doesn't really generate a lot of interest and it just kind of maintains where it's at, then we will pay attention to it when we have to and make some changes along the way. This is unfortunate but true, right? We have to start looking at things. We have to start looking at all the different systems across the game world and determine which ones are still viable and which ones we need to integrate into the game better overall. So I think the ultimate goal, at least for me as a systems designer, is to find ways to integrate a lot of the systems into one another so that there are reasons to do all of them and to continue doing all of them. In the short term, the idea would be to shutter the delving of Frore to focus on incentivization of going into the general Ettenmoors more often to increase the actual participation out there. What classes do I have experience playing with recently? It's a good question, Zip. I am focused primarily on Guardian, Hunter, and Bjorning. And Minstrel. I'm always going to have a soft spot for Minstrel. I love Minstrel. The stat distributions on Audacity, it's to make sure that they're staying balanced across the different tiers, and in some cases the vitality bump that you would get, while it seems like it's minimal, when you actually start to apply all the percentage bonuses, it ends up being rather significant. Okay, again, not getting rid of LIs. Skill animation locks on the creep. That's something we're definitely looking at. In fact, there are changes going in to fix some of the skill animation locks that we have on Freeps as well. Any plans to update or improve skirmishes? I can't really talk too much about that, but if it's a system, it's something that we're looking at. War Steeds, again, if it's a system, it's something that we're looking at. I have come to the end of the questions. Wow. That actually was kind of fun. We had a little stumble at the beginning, but we caught ourselves and we were able to put together a stream that lasted for about an hour and 10 minutes. If there are any other questions right now, feel free to ask. I'll be here, say, for like another 4 minutes. What I'm hoping to do is turn this into something of a fairly regular occurrence, where I actually play the game alongside you, so that you can actually see the way that I'm viewing the game. And I can talk about the changes and things that I'm actually looking for along the lines of class balance and things along that. But another thing that we'll be doing is for each of the upcoming releases, when we have an opportunity to sit down and tell you about those changes that are coming up, if it's not me, then maybe it'll be another member of the system team who will come in and actually give you a discussion and an outline of everything that's coming online. If nobody knows who I am from the past, started off as an OCR for Turbine when Turbine was Turbine on Asheron's Call. I moved over to DDO, and then I came to Lotro, and I spent 7, almost 8 years on Lotro as both a content designer and eventually systems designer before being moved off to a game that never made it. So coming back here has been an absolute joy for me, and I'm extraordinarily excited to continue working on a game that I've loved, still love, and am really excited about getting back into. So yeah, looks like there's another question. Trait lines or corruption loadouts for easier changing possibilities on Creepside. It's not as simple as that on Creepside, unfortunately, so it's something that we would really have to look at as to the difficulty and cost of actually doing something like that. I know that's not what anyone wants to hear. I think the best option would probably be, oh, we already have that, the ability to change out in the wild itself. Do I have a certain server that I play on, and do I have the interloping mod ability to move between realms? I will neither confirm or deny what I can and cannot do, or what servers I play on. When I play, I am on my personal time, even though I am technically still working because I am trying to figure out ways that I can fix some of the problems that exist. Do I think that outpost buffs should be removed? Yes, I do. I don't think that they should be removed completely. I think they should be altered so that they are something beneficial to the group that owns them, or I should say the side of the battle that owns them, but not something detrimental to the other side. So there should be an incentive to get that, to actually own the keeps and the outposts, but not something that is detrimental to the other side. The one thing that I will caveat that with is when one side is rolling really strong, I want to provide an opportunity or an ability for the side that is losing to get back into the fight. But those are definitely things that I'm looking at for the future as things that we can make adjustments to, and maybe adjustments that happen more frequently to ensure that there is continued incentive and continued change that is constantly happening in the Edmores. And Farrell, yeah, your statement about PvP is always going to be skewed when getting opinions. You're right. It is, because some servers have a very high populace of individuals who go out and engage in PvMP, and some don't. And some have really high skill monster players, and some have really high skill free players, and sometimes those never meet in the middle. So it is. Balance in general is difficult to achieve. If it was all about the numbers, it would be very easy. It's not just all about the numbers. It's about the numbers and then compacted by the number of players. It's compacted by the abilities of the players. It's compacted by is the system fun in and of itself. The goal here is to make something fun. That does not necessarily mean perfectly balanced. It means that it is an enjoyable experience to people who are engaging in that experience. Outpost should be a group or solo activity. They are not a solo activity. Oh, outposts. Outposts should be a small group activity. They were originally designed to be like a 3-man. So a 3-6-man is actually still a viable experience for outposts. Keeps should end up falling into a solid maybe 2 fellowship to 3 fellowship. So a small to mid-size raid to take those down. But that doesn't mean that a full raid, obviously, you wouldn't be able to just plow through and take out a given keep. But ultimately, yes, outpost should be small group activity. Nasharon Wows, I think you may not have been here when I mentioned this. The changes that will be coming to keeps will increase the overall ability of the NPCs that are present for creeps when creeps own it, so that they are tougher for the players to kill, because players have a lot more damage that they output than the creeps do against PvE experiences. Little Red, that is a really loaded question for me to answer. I would say Arc is probably a good spot, but I would consult with the monster player community to figure out which ones would actually support you when you got into the experience. And Uptown Coyote, if you have a question that's not PvMP related, feel free to ask. If I can answer it, I will. Will I increase the difficulty OP then? All the NPCs that exist in the Etmores are getting a buff. Something that I miss in Lotro is a way to play those wonderful new areas. Have we given any thought about features that would solve that? So you're talking about like descaling your levels so that you can go back and experience those levels at a level that is closer to what they should be played at. Scaling is something that we are always cognizant of. It's something that is rather difficult to do, but it's not something that is impossible. It's just something that takes a lot of time, and we have to weigh that against the investment of whether or not it's worth it. That is kind of a cop-out answer, but that basically means that we've looked at it. It's not something that we're planning on changing at this point. What role would you like a Reaver to fill? Reavers are clearly supposed to be DPS. Or fodder. I mean, I think there's actually a description on them that they're fodder. I think some of their skills actually call them fodder. But yes, they are supposed to be damage. DPS. AoE, single target, DPS. Any chance of removing unviable trait lines that serve no purpose? Potentially. one of the things that we're looking at making changes to is specifically the trait lines and making sure that there's a little bit more viability or usefulness inside of each of the trait lines. What do you think about CC change in PvP? Considering I started the CC changes with Audacity and put them to 92% reduction, I don't like CC in PvP. I don't like not being able to play. I like to be able to play. And the changes have dropped down to about 65%. And there was a lot of questions as to why. Ultimately, the reason that 65% was chosen, I really wanted to go 66 because I want that 30-second CC to actually be a 10-second CC, or I want that 15 to be a 5-second, so on and so forth. I have changes in mind for the Reaver. I still want them to be DPS. I saw Mantis' changes, and most of them were actually toward DPS. Alternate ways of gaining trait points. Not a bad idea. Something we can certainly look at. Making level scaling features into more useful across all level ranges. I updated some of that in this release. They're not perfect, but they're a little better than they were, I think. I am not removing CC from PvP. I've just reduced it. Are we getting a graphics overhaul for the game? I don't believe we're planning on any major graphics overhauls at this point in time. There's one change you can make to PvP that you think players would most enjoy. What would it be? That's a tough one. One change? To have Creepside be full characters. Would I consider opening a PvP feedback Discord, similar to what Fantas had? We've talked about it. The problem is moderation. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, PvP players, but your reputation is not exactly good for being able to remain civil and, what's the other word I'm looking for? Not just civil, being civil with one another. So it is one of those things where the moderation is the issue. Whether or not that's something we can overcome, we'll have to see. I will tell you that I'm lurking in a few Discords. I'm active in one or two. One mostly. Will creeps also gain multiplicative damage from Audacity? So the funny thing about the multiplicative damage is that because their normal damage output is so low, it wouldn't have as much of an impact. Are there other ways to fix that? Yes, and those are things that I teased a little bit, as in general modifiers to the Edmore's overall that Audacity would end up overcoming or modifying to remove or enhance along the way. Yes, you are savages. I shared my ideas about Champ Sprint, I think. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the fact that they can have 100% uptime with the sprint. But I'm not going to change it for PvE because it is something that a lot of players have come to rely on with the new LI system. And for me to actually nerf that just on the outset because I choose to for PvP would not be fair to them. So I need to come up with counterplay for it. How long do I think it would take? Look, we're not promising changes. Mitigity. We're not. I'm not promising any changes here. how long would it take for every change that I want to make? A really long time. Like, if I showed you my vision board, right? If I put my vision board up here for all of you to look at, and I showed you what my real end goal was, I can't talk about what my real end goal is because it may never come to fruition. And if I put it out there as a possible idea, you're going to want to hold me to it. And it's not fair to you as players, nor is it fair to me as a developer for me to, one, say that to you, that, hey, this is coming here, when I don't know. We have other objectives that we need to maintain. We have other things that we're working on concurrently with what we're doing now. If it was me working on these things alone for, just that's all I did, it would probably take me 1.5 years to get to where I want to be. That doesn't mean that I can't move faster or that sometimes I would move slower. It's not something that I can pinpoint a time frame on because it's not an easy thing to do. So we're not going to go out and say this is when it's happening. We're not going to go out and make promises that we can't keep. I think, and this is not bemoaning anything that has come in the past, I think the best way to interact with the community is to be as upfront and honest with them as you possibly can. And what I'm trying to get across is that these changes are going to happen over a period of time. We have about 6 months to take a look at the holistic changes to the Ed and Moores to figure out whether or not these changes have, whether or not the adjustments that we are making are a net positive. How big that net positive is will influence how much more we actually would invest or put toward the overall Monster Play experience. That means very simply that if there's a significant bump in the short term, fantastic. But if it trails off and falls below where it is now or maintains where it is now, then we would probably end up putting about the same into it. If it increases over time or if it moves up a little bit, then we can weigh it and say, hey, we can put a little bit more into this. The overall objective, like I said, is to make this another avenue by which players continue to play the game. It's another retention metric that we have, and it's what we're actually looking at. Let's see. I went a few before looking at anything. Boo for that answer on Champ Sprint. It's an answer. You're not going to like everything I say. And I can't make you like everything I say. And I'm not really here to be your friend. I'm here to communicate information. All right. So all communication is great. Our forums is a great way to communicate with the developers. And I'm hoping that I can actually start posting more. My MO back in the day was to be a conduit to the player base whenever I had the opportunity to do so. If anybody remembers, back when we were working on Riders of Rohan, and previous to that, the major changes that we made to classes around Warden and Minstrel and Champion, I was always very vocal about what was going on, because I was making some massive changes to the classes and changing the way that they were worked fundamentally. So anytime something like that is happening, we want to be able to have those communications with you and ensure that your voices are heard alongside the decisions that we're making. The majority of this player base has been with us for a very long time, and it's something that I think is just fair that we have an open and honest communication with all of you. So as to how to get to me, forums are great, and yes, I am hoping that I can turn this into if not a bi-weekly, then definitely a monthly stream. We'll see how this one goes. It looks like we peaked around 240-ish people. But we'll see if that's something that there's an appetite for moving forward. Turn Lotra into a PvP game. Yeah, that's not going to happen. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop here, and Brandon, Lotra PvMP like Dayak. Ironically, that's where things kind of were at one point, where the Et and Mores actually did have a benefit to all of Eriador. Our players hated that, and rather than keep that in place, it was something that we made the decision that we didn't want our PvP to mix with our PvE. So we didn't want to get the peanut butter with the chocolate in this particular case because it was more like poo, and we didn't want to do that to players. So that's why we backed off of that. But there are aspects of Deox still there because I loved the PvP there, and I still think it's one of the best RVR. It's certainly the best RVR, but I still think it's one of the better PvP systems that ever existed inside of MMOs. And yes, I still play from time to time. It's one of the other games that I simply love. All right. Yeah, so I think at this point, yeah, we will wrap this up. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to just say flat out, I'm so happy to be back in this community. I'm so glad that I've been re-embraced by the community, and I'm looking forward to future discussions. Hopefully we'll be able to have these, like I said, on a bi-weekly or maybe monthly basis, and this will be going up on YouTube at some point in the future. I know that Cord is going to be taking his time to edit it and make sure that all my uhs and uhs are probably clipped. No, he won't do that. But there'll be opportunities to have more discussions with us in the future. Thanks for playing Lotro, and I hope to see you on the Edinmores. Have a great day.